A young Sioux named Black Elk, also known as Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapa, joined the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876 when he was just 13 years old. During the intense fight, he showed bravery by claiming a soldier's scalp. As the second cousin of Crazy Horse, a key leader in the battle, Black Elk had a special view of the events as they happened. He saw the chaos and fierceness of the conflict, observing how the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors defeated the 7th Cavalry Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. Black Elk's personal account provides a rare glimpse into this critical moment in American history. None of the white soldiers fighting with Custer survived the battle, which ended swiftly during the daytime. Crazy Horse, a determined and fearless chief, had already defeated General Crook's forces at the Rosebud earlier that same day. Some say Crazy Horse could have wiped out the soldiers completely if he had called more warriors from the nearby villages and planned a morning ambush, since the troops were resting in the dark after their earlier clash. Earlier that year, during a freezing March morning in the moon of the snow blind, Crazy Horse had driven back cavalry who attacked their village along the Powder River. After that, he traveled west to the Rosebud, where he once again pushed back enemy soldiers before heading to the Valley of the Greasy Grass, a sacred place where his people longed to live in peace. 2 days before the big battle, the Sioux set up their camp along the southern side of the Greasy Grass Valley before noon. The village was huge, with countless teepees stretching across the land. To the south and upstream were the Hunkpapas, followed by the Aglolas, Minneconjous, Sanarks, Blackfeet, and Shahielas, with the Santas and Yanktonais positioned farthest north. To the east, the Greasy Grass River flowed, full from snow melting off the Bighorn Mountains, with trees growing thick along its edges. From a hill nearby, you could look out and see the mountains to the south and west. Across the river there were bluffs and hills crisscrossed by deep gullies. To the west, lower hills offered grazing land and safety for thousands of ponies. A warrior named Rattling Hawk, who had been injured in the hip during the Rosebud fight, was healed by a medicine man called Hairy Chin. The day before the battle, as Black Elk was getting ready to swim with his friends, Hairy Chin called him to Rattling Hawk's teepee to assist with a special task. 5 other boys came along, and they were asked to take part in a healing ceremony by becoming bears, since Hairy Chin's spiritual power came from a dream about a bear. He painted Black Elk's face and body yellow, added black stripes near his nose, tied his hair to look like bear ears, and placed eagle feathers on his head. As this happened, Black Elk recalled a vision he had and suddenly felt like he was floating above the ground. In that moment, I felt something deeper than words could express and grew certain that trouble was coming soon. A heavy feeling of fear came over me. The other boys were painted bright red from head to toe, each wearing real bear ears on their heads as part of the ritual. Hairy Chin, dressed in a real bear pelt, started to chant a sacred song. At the entrance of the teepee, the holy herbs seemed to come alive with joy. 2 women stepped inside, standing on either side of the injured warrior, Rattling Hawk. One held a container filled with water, while the other carried a bundle of sacred herbs. As I stared at the water container, I wondered if it held the whole sky, like I'd seen in my vision, but I couldn't tell for sure. While the women offered the herbs and water to Rattling Hawk, Hairy Chin kept singing his powerful chant. Then they gave the wounded warrior a red cane, and right away he rose to his feet. Using the sacred cane for support, Rattling Hawk walked behind the 2 women as they left the teepee. We boys, dressed up as young bears, danced around him, growling loudly as part of the healing ceremony. Colorful feathers poked out from our mouths as we acted out our roles. Afterward, Hairy Chin crawled out on his hands and knees, looking so much like a real bear that it amazed me. Rattling Hawk's limp got better, and though he couldn't fight the next day, he soon grew strong again. After the ritual, we boys headed to the river to scrub the paint off our bodies. When we got back, the villagers were celebrating with dances and sharing tales of courage from the recent fight at Rosebud. As evening came, we were told to bring the horses closer to the camp. By the time we finished, it was dark, and the celebrations continued, with people dancing around the glowing campfires. We moved from one group to another, listening to stories, until we were too tired to stay awake any longer. At dawn, my father woke me up and asked me to help him take our horses to graze. While we worked, he told me to tie a long rope to one horse to make it easier to catch and keep the others secure. He reminded me to stay alert, saying I should watch the camp closely and bring the horses back fast if danger came. Several of us boys looked after our horses together until noon, when the sun's heat became too much. We decided to cool off in the river, and my cousin kindly offered to watch the horses while we swam. As I rubbed grease on my skin to protect it, a strange feeling of worry washed over me, like something bad was about to happen. Even so, I joined the others by the river's edge. To the west of the camp, many people were busy gathering turnips, and a big group was already swimming in the water. By the time my cousin brought the horses down to drink, we had been swimming for a long time, and the sun's heat was still intense. Suddenly, the crier's voice rang out through the nearby Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapa camp, shouting, "The soldiers are coming! They're charging! The soldiers are here!" The warning spread quickly from one camp to another, reaching even the Santas and Yanktonais. The Oglala crier shouted the warning again, his voice growing more urgent with every yell. Everyone hurried to grab their horses, and we were fortunate to have ours nearby. My older brother, riding a sorrel horse, sped off toward the Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapa camp. I was on a buckskin pony. When my father noticed my brother yelling and riding toward the Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapas without his pistol, he rushed over to me. He told me to chase after my brother, get the pistol, and bring it back quickly. He also handed me my six-shooter, a special gift from my aunt. I grabbed the guns, jumped on my pony, and raced after my brother. Just beyond the Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapa camp, a huge cloud of dust rose up as the Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapas, many still dripping wet from swimming in the river, ran around in a panic. Through the thick dust, the soldiers appeared on their strong horses, looking tall and terrifying as they fired their weapons. My brother, holding his revolver, yelled for me to turn back. Past the Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapa camp, there was a thick patch of trees where some warriors were gathering. My brother rode toward it, and I followed close behind. Women and children were fleeing downstream in large groups. Looking back, I saw them scattering up the hillside in fear. When we reached the trees, many Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapas were already there, and the soldiers were shooting over our heads. Bullets hit the trees, making leaves fall around us. The women and children kept running away. Warriors galloped in on their horses, and I couldn't see what was happening in the village below. Everything was filled with dust, loud shouts, and the sound of gunfire. In the woods and just outside the Ha-Ha-Ka-Sapa camp, we all shouted, "Stay strong! Don't act scared!" The defenseless people were panting and out of breath. I think this was when Gall stepped in to stop the Ha-Ha-Sapas from running away. I stayed in the woods for a bit, thinking about my vision. It gave me a stronger sense of purpose and made me believe that the army would lose, and that my people were like powerful thunder beings. All of a sudden, a loud cry broke through the dust. "Crazy Horse is here!" The arrival of Crazy Horse was signaled by the piercing sound of eagle bone whistles and the wild shouts of Hokahi, like a fierce wind howling coming from the north and west. The valley grew dark with clouds of dust and smoke, filled with shadows, loud yells, the sound of galloping hooves, and constant gunfire. To my left, I heard the soldiers' horses, their metal shoes clanging as they retreated into the thick bushes, with shots ringing out all around. The horses finally crashed through the underbrush, and I found myself caught in a wild mess as warriors and horses moved back and forth, heading upstream and shouting, "Hurry up! Move quickly!" Everyone was jumbled together in the chaos as the soldiers fled upstream. I couldn't see much, but I did catch sight of a Lakota warrior charging at a soldier who stood firm and fought bravely. The Lakota grabbed the soldier's horse by the reins, but the soldier fired his revolver at him. Being small, I couldn't push my way through to where the soldiers were, so I didn't take anyone's life. The scene was dark and confusing, with too many people blocking my view. Soon the soldiers and many Lakota warriors were crowded into the river, and I ended up in the water for a bit. Men and horses were tangled up, fighting in the river, making it sound like hail pounding down. After we climbed out of the water, people started taking clothes off the fallen soldiers and wearing them. One soldier lying on the ground was still moving. A Lakota warrior rode up and told me, "Boy, get off your horse and take his scalp." I dismounted and began to scalp the soldier. His hair was short and my knife was dull. He was clenching his teeth, so I shot him in the forehead and then took his scalp. Many of our warriors were chasing the soldiers up a hill across the river, while others moved downstream. On a far hill above the Santee camp, a thick cloud of dust hung in the air, with our fighters darting in and out like swift birds, and the sound of gunfire never stopped. I decided to show my mother the scalp I'd taken, so I rode toward the hill where a group of women and children had gathered. On my way, I noticed a brave young woman among a group of warriors heading into the battle. She sang loudly, "Brothers, your friends are here now. Stay strong, stay strong. Do you want to see me captured?" As I passed through the Oglala camp, I saw Rattling Hawk sitting alone in his teepee, holding a gun and singing a sad song. "What can you do, brothers, that I cannot do?" When I reached the women on the hill, they were singing and making tremolo calls to cheer on the warriors fighting across the river. My mother made a special tremolo sound just for me when she saw the scalp I brought her. I stayed with my mother for a while, watching the dust swirl on the hill across the river. Horses without riders came out of the cloud. I spent some time with the women after showing my mother my first scalp. The women kept singing and making tremolo calls. The battle's dust made it hard to see, but we were certain the soldiers would lose. Many boys my age and younger were there with their mothers and sisters, and they asked me to join them in the fight. We got on our ponies and rode off. As we headed down toward the river, we saw gray horses with empty saddles charging into the water. When we reached the mouth of a ravine that led up to the bluffs where the fighting was still happening, we crossed the greasy grass. By the time we got there, most of the soldiers were already down, many dead, though a few were still alive. More boys had joined us by then, and we rode around, firing arrows at the remaining soldiers. I saw one soldier twisting in pain with arrows in him and tried to take his coat, but an older man shoved me aside and took it for himself. Then I noticed a shiny object hanging from the soldier's belt. I pulled it off, a round, bright yellow item that looked beautiful. I wore it as a necklace. It made a ticking sound at first, but then it stopped. I kept it around my neck for a long time before I learned what it was and how to make it tick again. After that, the women came together, and we climbed to the top of the hill. There, gray horses lay dead, some piled on top of soldiers, and some soldiers on top of horses. We didn't see many of our own people who had fallen, as they had already been carried away, but many of our warriors had been killed or hurt. The heavy dust from the battle made it hard to see clearly, and it was tough to tell who was who. Nobody seemed to know which soldier was Pianchanska, and I didn't see him. I spotted one soldier raising his arms and moaning, so I shot an arrow into his forehead, and his body twitched. Nearby, I saw some Lakota warriors trying to help another Lakota. When I got closer, I realized it was Black Wasiku, the brother of Chase in the morning. He had been shot through his right shoulder, with the bullet stuck in his left hip. He was hanging off his horse when he got hit. They were treating him with healing medicine. He was my cousin, and his father and my father were so angry about his injury that they went and killed a soldier, cutting up his body. The soldier was big and his flesh looked tempting, but we didn't eat it. A young boy, even younger than me, asked me to scalp a soldier for him. I did it, and he ran off to show the scalp to his mother. Most of our warriors were pushing the remaining soldiers back to the hill where their pack mules were, while we were there. After a while, I got tired of looking around the area. The smell of blood was strong, and I lost interest in staying. So I headed back home with a few others. I didn't feel bad. I was content. The soldiers had come to attack us and our families, and this was our land. When I was hiding in the bushes with the hunk-papas and heard the first gunshots, I had a feeling this would happen. I believed my people were connected to the thunder beings from my vision, and the soldiers were foolish to come here. That night, everyone in the village stayed awake, unable to sleep. The next morning, another group of warriors went back to the hill where the soldiers were, and those who had stayed there overnight returned to camp. My mother and I went along. She rode a mare, and a small colt trotted beside her, staying close to its mother. We could see the horses and pack mules up on the hill, but the soldiers had built strong defenses. At the bottom of the hill, on the western side of the greasy grass, there were some bullberry bushes. A bigger boy named Round Fool was circling around the bushes. When we asked what he was doing, he said, "There's a white man hiding in that bush." And he was right. The man had stayed hidden there when the other soldiers retreated to the hilltop and had been there all night. We started shooting arrows at him, and it felt a bit like hunting a rabbit. He moved from one side of the bush to the other while we ran around, firing our bows. At one point, he cried out in pain. Eventually, we set the grass around the bushes on fire, and he ran out. Some of our warriors killed him. After we climbed to the back of the hill where some of our men were positioned, we looked over. We couldn't see the soldiers hiding in their defenses, but we could see the horses and pack mules, many of which were dead. When we went back down and crossed the river again, some soldiers shot at us, their bullets hitting the water. It was almost evening when my mother and I galloped back to camp. By then, our scouts had reported that more soldiers were coming upstream, so we decided to pack up and leave. Before dark, we had everything ready and started moving up the greasy grass toward Woodlouse Creek in the Bighorn Mountains. We traveled through the night, following the greasy grass. My mother put some puppies into the pony drag that my two younger brothers and I were riding in. The puppies kept trying to jump out, so I spent a lot of time putting them back in the drag, which meant I barely got any sleep. By morning, we reached a small dry creek, set up camp, and ate a big meal. The meat had streaks of fat in it, and I wish I had some of that tasty meat right now. By midday, we set out again and reached Woodlouse Creek at the foot of the Bighorn Mountains, where we set up our camp. There, a warrior called Three Bears, who was badly hurt, started shaking and kept repeating, "Janini, Janini." I didn't understand what he was saying. He passed away soon after, and we named that place the camp where Janini died. That night, people in the camp got scared and started shouting, "The soldiers are coming!" I looked and thought I saw troops approaching, but it was just some of our own men wearing soldiers' uniforms, playing a prank to fool us. Our scouts came back and said the soldiers weren't chasing us, and we were safe for now. All through the camp, big fires glowed brightly, and victory dances went on all night long. I hope this first-hand story gives you a new way to see the Battle of Little Bighorn and the Great Sioux War of 1876. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to get more videos from this channel.